Hey everybody, it's Katherine, and I am standing up, and so I am going to do something different, and I am wearing this medallion because you guys didn't get to see it in my Star Wars from Insider Movies, so I was like, I'm going to wear it again because you guys didn't get to see it through that entire thing, so I was like, I'm going to wear it on this one, so because you can finally see me like top to bottom. So if you want to see the Insider Movies for Star Wars, I'll put it right here, so it's a really great one. I'm so glad that you guys are enjoying it. So anyway, since I'm standing up, I thought I would try out this new little format on you. So you guys really love the not Insider Movies. You guys love the Q&A that I did with Ben Shapiro, and I'm so glad that you liked that format and that you liked getting. You want me to do like everybody's Q&A sessions now, which I'm like, that's a lot. That's a lot of Q&As. Like, I can't do that. But also there's this other thing I've wanting to be doing, which is body language. Like, I've been really wanting to do body language because that's like a big part of strategy and consulting. Like, that's a really, really big thing. It's also big in politics. Like, there's a lot of these Congress, because people are getting more involved in politics. A lot of people are watching congressional hearings. And also, really, the big arm, the thing that is affecting our life the most right now is actually they call it the deep state. And I'm like, that's a terrible name to call it. Like, that's just, it's one that they made up themselves. Like, they themselves call it the deep state so that everyone will believe it's fictional. Like, seriously, no, it's the intelligence community. And what happened is the intelligence community, because they had like DNC control, and the DNC just gave them like the ability to go into everybody's lives and unmask. So if you have protections over your name, like if you saw that video, and I'll give it a link to it here, but it shows you like how much power they've had. Now, Trey Gowdy in that video keeps saying like, if you really want us to keep giving you permission to unmask, like unlimited permission to just keep unmasking all these Americans' names and just go after them, and then you keep leaking it to the press, like, if you really want to do that, you've got to be upfront with me here. And like the guy who's testifying just is like not, he just refuses to give information. If you notice with the intelligence community, now that they're under fire and it's all the corruption is coming out, they all testify the same way. Like, they all testify the same way. Why is that? Because they all have training. Like, they all know the tells. They all know how to do it. Like, they do it for a living. Like, they grill other people. They all have the training. They all have the PSYOPs test. They all have the intelligence. I mean, that's what they do, is intelligence. And so they know how to sit there and they're so confident. And there's a reason they're just so confident. They know exactly how to lie. They know exactly how to tell you, like, oh, I don't remember that. Because they know you can't do anything with that in court. Like, the highest paid lawyers just say, I don't remember, I don't know, I don't remember. And they all just say it. And like, they're never worried or stressed under any of those testimony things. And so it's becoming important for us as Americans when that's kind of like the name of the game. And those people have been in charge for like decades now. Like, that there's a trickle down effect. Like, that's one of the first things I learned when I was teaching inner city, when I would do all these teachers conferences, when like we still had somewhat of an education system at that time. One of the biggest things they used to say was, you can tell a school by its principal. How do you know if it has a good principal? You go into the bathroom. And you see how well the bathroom is taken care of. And I'd be like, what the heck does that mean? Well, the bathroom, how well it's taken care of, they said because the principal's on the top, and whoever the principal is, it trickles all the way down to the bottom. Like, whoever's in control, it passes through all areas of the school until the bottom. And that's exactly what's going on in the country. That's why I'm always like, focus on who's at the very, very top of the power structure. Why are we focusing on all the people at the bottom? That's what they want us to do, because they're not affecting anything. We need to focus on who's at the top, like, and so that we can understand the kind of powers and the things that are affecting our lives. And so what happens is that the people at the power top, these are the kind of body language things we need to start learning them, so that when these kind of things come into our lives, that kind of behavior has come down the stream, and those are the leaders that have come up. I'll never forget it. Like, I'll never forget when corruption, like serious corruption, came into our government. Like, there just came a time where some really severe stuff that hasn't been uncovered yet. And I'll never forget it because in my community, that is when the worst people came into that community. And then as I did research and I started to write about it, I found out from other people, their community's the exact same. You think that's a coincidence? You think that's a coincidence that like just across the map, all communities change? No, that's because what's at the top trickles down to the bottom. And so what happens is that people become normalized to it. And I don't want you to become normalized to it. I want you to start to learn to trust your gut and kind of come into connection with that, because back in the day when the FBI was really good, and there still is, the majority of the FBI is good, but the leadership isn't. Do you know what I mean? Like the leadership is just working. We know that. We've learned that from the research or whatever. When you call the FBI, you can't get help. Like you get a call center and they never call you back. And like the prosecutors say that if they go to the FBI actually works against their cases. Like the district courts, they try to bring a case to be prosecuted and the FBI will actually tear apart their case. Like we have a whole different power structure. And that's what you're seeing unfold in Congress right now, is that FBI is like sort of coming apart and they're really trying to hold their ground. And that's why all of the new people being tried to put in to clean all that out, they're all being blocked. And that's what you're seeing. So anyway, but all those kinds of behaviors are trickling down into our lives and we need to learn how to spot them and things like that. So I do think understanding body language is really important. And since that's something that my friends are like, every time I'm like, oh, I want to do that body language, or they're like, you've got to do it. You've got to do it. Because I do it naturally. Like if we're, no matter what it is we're watching, I'm like, ooh, I can't help it. Like I am pointing it out through. That's how I'm really good at it. Knowing the acting things and helping out actors. Like that's why I'm really good at that. That's why I'm good at helping out the people on Wall Street. That's why I'm good at helping out all things, is because I know body language so well. Like, you know, my intuition is extremely strong. And I've learned over the years, you know, through owning businesses and things like that, I've learned to identify like, what is that that's triggering my intuition? Like picking out the things that's picking that out. Like, well, how is it that I'm arriving to that point and things like that? How is it that, and helping people around me get to those points as well. So anyway, I was going to do this Q&A with you, and then I was like, oh gosh, I'm going to end up saying body language stuff too. So I guess I'm introducing both to you, and that's just the way it is. And who knows when I'll be standing again. I haven't been standing in forever. So like, if you've noticed my videos, they've been standing for a lot. Well, gosh, you don't notice my videos because I get them all out at random times, but my last few videos, I've been wanting to stand and I have not been able to stand. So they've just been sitting and it stinks. And I was like, I want to be able to stand for you guys. So yeah, let's go ahead and do this. Let's do it. Okay, so I decided to do Candace Owens Q&A just because she came up in the news and we talked about it with Kanye West or whatever. And I was like, I don't know who she is. And I threw something up. And you know why she got my attention? Because well, not the first thing. I sent you the thing and I was like, oh, interesting. Like, it's really interesting. But you know what? It wasn't as interesting as the next thing I found. The next thing I found was how she said she got red pilled, which I haven't even gone into. And I'm still learning what that means. I did not know it when I went in the Matrix and told everyone I need to do it. I still need to do that because I'm still figuring out what it means. I'm learning that. I'm like, I still have to figure out what it means. What the real thing is. I think I have a grasp on it. I think I finally got it. But really, what I learned is that she used to be a leftist, and then I learned how she became, you know, what she calls a conservative. But even she does the thing that drives me nuts, is she really wants to pigeonhole people into a group. And I'm like, that's exactly what they want. They want to pigeonhole us, and we are just not. Like, we don't fit into boxes. Like, that is just not the human existence. You know, like, please remember there was eras where we didn't actually put ourselves into a box until election day. And then we're like, oh crap, we have to decide. And that's the day we decided what we were. But we never defined ourselves by that. So why are you defining it now? Because they are asking you to. Don't ask us to define ourselves with any political group. Like, I think saying that you are not a communist is enough. Saying that you don't want to be a totalitarian state is enough. Saying that I'm in one of the 90% of political ideas and views, I'm along that range, is enough. But it is a big deal to ask somebody and say, well, you just can't be liberal anymore. You have to be conservative. Do you see how it plays into their hands? Like, that's just saying, well, you got to switch to a different identity group. I see how that, I just feel like that plays into their hands. not a little bit, it's everything. It's everything they want. You know, that was the whole plan. That's why they divided us into Fox News and then the other news stations. And they did it on purpose. They didn't give us a bunch. They gave us one. And on all the TV shows after that, like if you watch some of Bill Maher's shows before, he used to have a bunch of different viewpoints. And then after they started doing the Fox News and dividing, all of a sudden now it's one differing viewpoint and then 3 leftists. And all the shows started doing that. One different viewpoint and then 3 leftists, when that is not how it is in real society. And that's a mind trick. Like, that's a great, like, CIA, psychology, it's basic psychology. It does a real mind trick to make you think, like, I'm in the minority, or we're all in boxes, or everyone agrees it's this way. And the worst thing that they're doing today that no one gets, this is why they don't tell us about communist China. They do not tell us any story about communist China, because then we would see it in our own society. Like, the more I watch China Uncensored, the more I see that it's actually playing out around us every single day. The more I realize it's actually here. Like, it's here. There is more of communism in our country than there is of the Constitution. We are living out communism every day. We are doing it. We are doing it. We have people enforcing it every single day. And you get that when you start to watch China Uncensored. You start to understand that, oh, we've actually converted. We're actually going along with it. No, we're there. We are there. If everyone tells us go this way, everyone goes, and it's anger and it's public opinion. And if public opinion says do it, then we do it. And it's a big, and that's a very different. It's good to watch it, because then you start to realize, like, actually, this is where we were. This is the difference between democracy, and we are not a democracy anymore. And you're like, this is how far we have to go. Okay, like, this is the work that we have to do. So anyway, I'm saying a lot of things because I've been quiet for a while, and I need to get it out, I guess. So let's do the body language. So anyway, I was watching Candace Owens. And then I came across a Q&A, and I was like, oh, I want to do this one, because I really wanted to talk to the guy. But then I was like, oh, when I started to play it right here on the TV, I was like, oh, I'm going to end up saying body language stuff. So here we go, body language stuff. And Candace Owens, who I love, she says what she thinks, and that's wonderful. And she believes in free speech. And she also believes that you should have your own opinions. Like, she does not require that you have her opinions. She points out that everyone has different opinions, even in the Conservative Party. Everyone disagrees with each other, and that's okay. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and that's pretty much the Conservative Party today, is the other 90% that the left, the Communist Party, has shoved out. It's just basically America. Like, that's why it feels like if you're an American, you're a conservative. That's what it is now, which is why I'm like, don't say it's the Conservative Party. No one thinks of the Conservative Party as the Americans. Like, you have to just be like, you're either a communist or you're an American, and you see it play out. Like, you know, the Conservative Party is the home of, like, anyone who believes in the Constitution, free speech, you know, you have the right to your own opinion and things like that. And that's just where it is. So, all right, moving on. Let's do this. Yes, I still have Christmas lights up because, you know what? Like, we don't have time. Like, we don't have time ever. Like, my husband is constantly nursing me. I'm usually on the floor screaming by the time he gets home in some kind of horrible, wretched pain. So, and yeah, that doesn't lead to, like, Christmas lights is like the last thing on our list. So having happy things in the house, like, that's kind of like a great thing. So yeah. All right, here we go. So
I guess my next question is, what is it that you all truly stand for? Because
all right, so this was April 10th, 2018. Oh, let me see it. So as you see, April 10th, 2018. And this was apparently Candace Owens at CSU Change My Mind. So what she did is, apparently she went to a college campus and she'd already done speaking, or she worked for somebody and he did the speaking or whatever. And then she went out on the college campus and sat down and was like, change my mind. Like, come and change my mind, or I can change your mind, whatever. It was basically have a civil conversation. And a lot of the conservative groups of the college campuses try to do this. I think the conservative groups, they try to do, I saw it at Berkeley, where they try to sit down and have it, and it usually doesn't go well. Like, usually leftists come in and try to, like, knock the tent down. It's not pretty. And you never get shown it on the news. Like, did you watch that Berkeley police testify? Did you watch that? I'll give that link up here. Oh gosh, I don't think I shared it. Like, that's what should be on the news. And that's when you realize we live where we live. Because those guys ain't all that different from the guys you see in China that live outside of the law, like that are outside of the government, that do the bidding of the guys that are really in power. You're like, oh, that's exactly the same thing, the secret police that China has. Hey, how's it any different? It's not, because it's not reported on. And they just round up the people, you know, who are practicing Tai Chi. Anyway, so she sits down with this guy, right? And here's what he's saying. Hey, slow internet, sorry.
Like all the stuff that we can see online and stuff. I guess my concern with it is that, at least in the time that I've been here and been able to see,
all right, so already, like, what I want to point out is, how would you approach this guy? If this guy sat down next to you, what you didn't see is that she had sat down and she was like, anybody want to have a civil conversation? Anybody want to have a civil conversation? They show it at the end as an outtake. And no one came. Like, no one came. They wanted to sit and argue or get funny clips for their YouTube channel and be abrasive and argumentative. Or some were a little bit crazy, like some were not okay in the head. And so that was it. Like, they didn't want to sit, but they wanted to kind of like, it was unfortunate. And so it was just one of those things where no one was coming and sitting down. And this guy clearly came and sat down. But you can tell by his body language. Like, do you get this body language? Like, it is completely, like, his head's away from her. Like, he is just like, do you get it? It is literally like, I have to be here. Like, you know, if I have to, if I were sitting in the chair next to him, here would be the things that I would think. I would be like, okay, you're either one of the leaders on the campus. Maybe you're paid, most likely. Maybe you're not. Maybe there's benefits coming some way. Either way. But you're not here to get your mind changed. What you're here is to make sure your side doesn't look bad. You're here to make sure that, you know, she doesn't have a clip that shows that no one's willing to listen. Like, I'm here to make sure that the left doesn't look stupid and close-minded. Like, I'm here, but, you know, I am just not. This whole thing is, I am not buying. Like, I am not buying. There is no buying here. But it's not just saying that. It's like, I'm not buying, but, like, you guys shouldn't even buy either. Like, it's just like, you shouldn't even buy. Like, the whole attitude is like, your game is stupid. There's zero respect. Like, they came and sat in the chair that was supposed to be, like, open and, like, let's have an open debate. But there was zero respect. Like, zero. Like, closed lids, closed back, sit back, zero. I mean, there was, like, no. Like, part of it is, like, this is psychology that you guys it may be beyond or whatever, but a lot of it has to do with the fact that she's a female. A lot of it has to do with the fact that she's a female. And it's like a big deal that he is talking reasonably to a female. That is not his preferred. He would much prefer to be talking to a male. If he was sitting next to a male, you know. Like, look at this.
We had an event where Charlie Kirk was able to come. And, you know, if you were there, if you heard about that event, you heard, like, you had neo-Nazis coming, you had Traditional Workers' Party. And the thing about that is, throughout the course of the night,
Right there. Yeah.
people.
Like he started to get into it and then he was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Don't show it. Don't show the interest. Sit back. Like, started to get into it. Sit back. Like constantly regulating himself. Like, sell it. Sell the disinterest. Sell the disinterest. When decisions like that are being made, because there was interest, got up, got interested, got into it, and then there was a check. There was a like he literally thought, don't go there. Don't look interested for the camera. Check it back. And sit back. When you get a person like that, like that's actually like on camera and like selling it for the left, like selling it for the left just as much as like, like I'm here to sell my side, like whatever and stuff like that. You have to be just as smart because that means you have to earn their respect. They have no respect for you, like zero respect for you. Like it isn't even that they think their ideas are better. It is literally that they think that you are just like, they don't think that you are an equal at all. Like they think that you're subhuman. So it's like, okay, like, so then you have to earn their respect in a way. And the way that you do that is that you show them that you know exactly what they think of you. And you're just quiet and you just listen, but you don't lean in intently. Like, I don't do that. That usually when they sit back and do that, do you know what women do? They lean in and be like, I'm really interested. Man, that just makes them, even further. They're like, oh, they're so easy. No, if they sit back like that, do you know what I do? I match it. I'm like, I get it. You don't get me. I get it. And I match it. I sit back and I'm just like, I do that thing that I did with my kids. I give you as much respect as you give me respect. And what happens is they don't like that look. All of a sudden it's mirrored. They realize they're getting the exact same amount of respect back. They realize what they're doing, right? Now I'll listen and I'll listen in and I'll be sweet, but I will do that exact same thing back. I'll just sit back, whatever. And then what happens is that it will invite them in because they kind of catch themselves. And they'll either stay back or whatever, but usually it draws them in because most of those people, it's a manipulation tactic that they've learned to draw women in or whatever. And the thing is that what happens is that when you actually catch it and say, I get it, you don't respect me, that means I don't respect you. That always draws out respect. Men always respect a woman who are like, really? All right then. I don't need you. Men are always like, really, you don't? Well, then maybe you're actually interested in what I have to say and not just needy about a man. It's just something to think about. It's just one of those things. But it's a big thing or whatever. So not saying that you use it as a tactic to like get them to talk to you, but never, ever, ever give anyone like more respect than they're giving you. Don't be needy with your body. You just match it. Give it, match it, and you let them know that you know exactly what's going on. Like, I let them know exactly. I know exactly what you're doing. Like, I know exactly what you're doing. And you let the audience know, I know exactly what he's doing. I know exactly what he's doing. And you have to teach people how to treat you. And you're like, if you're going to treat me like that, then I'm going to treat you like that. Like, I'm only going to treat you with as much respect as you give me. It's so important. It's so important. And Jordan Peterson, I think, I will not totally say it, but he does say if somebody is not listening to you, don't give them time. Do you know what I mean? And this is a Q&A that you're supposed to be giving them time, but I'm saying there's an underlying thing there that it is a really hard lesson in society to learn about giving people time. That most people are not listening to you. They just want to hear themselves speak. You know, most people, if they grow up in an abusive household, which most of us are at this point, we tend to attract people who are like our parents, who are abusive. And I had to learn the hard way. I was always going towards abuse. All my best friends were abusive. And I had to learn the hard way to actually break away and get the healthier I got, the healthier my friend set became. You know what I mean? And then, finally I started attracting, like I knew how healthy I was by the friends that I was attracting. Do you know what I mean? Like you got out and out and out. So, and this is part of it, is that you have to learn to like catch it and be like, okay, but I was really good at that in when I was teaching high school, because those kids really love that. They wanted to be called out on their crap because it meant that you were actually listening to them instead of ignoring them and thinking of them as a victim. It meant that you actually saw them. They really loved that. They just wanted to be seen. And if you were always like, "Aw," they hated that crap. Anyway.
People who would be in Turning Point would say, like, we don't condone that type of behavior. We don't condone that type of ideology. However, the thing about it is, that's how far they would go. It's an organization that, yes, is here for one thing, but it attracts a certain group of people.
Yeah.
All right. Did you see that? Look. And he said a very specific set of words. Like he said a very specific set of words. And that's when I was like, right, all right, hired. Like that's when it's not like this is not a guy that would go for any other reason than for an assignment. Do you see curiosity there? Is there curiosity in that face? Like that's an accusatory tone. Like that's not interest. And not only that, this is how you know shills. Ooh, this is such a good thing. This is how you know shills. Did he ask a question about her ideas or the things that were actually proposed? No, he came in and actually attacked the organization and said, I have a problem with your actual organization. Truth really matters. And then he started quoting these things like, and this is the thing with truth. Like, no. And then quoted exactly like straight off of the Soros website. Like actually when the Soros website, Open Societies and Media Matters, like if you go ahead on YouTube and find out the things they put out scripts to say. Like you can tell the difference on YouTube and stuff when the kids are like, they hear these scripts all the time and then they have their own thoughts about them and they regurgitate it up in their own way. But when they actually read off the script verbatim and then they're like, I read the script. I got you. That's like, deal with that. Because he just thinks he won. Because he's like, I got the Open Society script in. Like, he really is happy with that. You think he's listening to what she has to say? Like, the argument really had nothing. It was just a script. It wasn't really an argument. Like, there's not really a whole lot there. I mean, the argument is, that's a guy who knows. He's like, you can't do anything about it. We bring KKK people all the time. You can't do anything about that. That's glee. Look at that. That's glee. He's like, you can't do anything about it, bitch. Excuse my language. He's just like, girl, you can't do anything about it. I just told everyone in your audience that you attract these people. All right, so what do you say to that? What do you say to that? She said a great answer. She was like, okay, like politics, politics is a dirty game. And she said like, well, he traveled around all this time and no one came. None of those people came. And then she's like, and then Donald Trump had him. And then all of a sudden these people came. And what does that tell you? And I was just kind of like, okay, that's that. And then she said a whole bunch of stuff. That's great. So here is what I would have said. I would have said, and did you see where those people came from? Like, have you ever followed where those people come from? Have you ever seen that the pictures of those people are the same from city to city? Have you seen the videos that those people of the KKK, like if you follow them, if you just follow the stream, like they come in a stream, like they don't come from the campus. Like if you follow the stream down, it comes from a bus, like a really expensive bus. Have you seen the listings online for Open Society for actual payment for people to do that kind of work? Or those are paid positions. Like that is politics today. There's paid positions. Like, let me just toss you one. Like, tell me something. You were at his event and you heard it. what's in his policy that would attract white supremacists? Like, what is it about his policy that he says, like, white supremacists? Like, let's talk about white supremacists. White supremacists say that blacks are subhuman and deserve no rights, and that the Civil Rights Act should be abolished. Now, we know that the Democrats were actually the ones that filibustered that. That was the DNC. And we know the KKK was actually founded by Democrats. So logic says that the KKK people were most likely Democrats. So, I mean, I need to hear your argument for why what he would be saying would attract KKK members. Like, I'm really interested to hear. I'd love to hear that. I want to hear what in his policies would make you think that, because there's a lot of evidence to say, like, there's just buckets of evidence. We know that they're being paid enormous amounts of cash. There are listings online. They're not hiding them, to do things like this. Like, even the Hillary campaign was caught on tape admitting to this. They were caught on tape. Do you want me to show you the video admitting? Like, I can show you the video of her campaign caught admitting that they hired the mentally ill to actually do exactly what you're talking about. So I personally think that it's what's been caught on tape since before any of this got political. He had zero coming. And the fact that the KKK is, a DNC thing. It's not really a Republican thing. Not to mention the fact that he talks about economics. And I haven't seen anything in the KKK history that says they're interested in economics. So yeah, I want to hear what you think about that. Like, why do you think they're coming? That would be my question. Because you always have to be thinking about what's on tape. Like, never ever think about the person you have right there. You always have to be thinking about the 8 million people that are going to be watching and what Google hides from them. And one of the things he said is like, oh, when I went to the thing, I couldn't really find this stuff online, which really brings up a good point. Yeah, Google wipes it. Google watches. Soros pays them by the gas loads to go on. They actually go on. They watch these people speak. They go on and they find all the articles and they wipe them. And you find a blank page. Conservative speakers today, basically anyone that isn't a leftist, anyone who isn't a communist speaker or socialist speaker, that works for the DNC, you have to basically bring your research with you in a packet and you have to hand it out. Like, you pay enough for security, run a packet and say, here's my research. Here's the published research, because they are burning books. We know that. We know that they have placed librarians in, and we know the books are no longer there. So here's the research, because Google has erased it, because we know who Google works for, the richest in the world. It's not the Republicans who are the richest. The richest are the DNC. Did you know that the DNC is 20 times richer than the Republicans? Did you know their coffers are 20 times richer than the Republicans, not to mention the intelligence community with their budget, which is on the side of the Republicans, not to mention all of Silicon Valley? So combined, their wealth is about 100 times more than the Republicans. So when you say the wealthy, that's really the DNC we're talking about, which would explain why they never closed the loophole for the rich in the 8 years they were in office. And the reason they made it in the first place when they were in office in the 90s. Okay, now it's not a question, but I really want to play this one part because of the body language right here. She offers to fly him down to a conservative conference, and I want you to watch his body language during this moment.
Or to be presented with a different idea, they will shield you by saying to you, don't even listen to what this person has to say. Just know that outside there are KKK members. So obviously what this person has to say can be wrong. Ben Shapiro is the greatest example of this. I don't know if you've ever heard Ben Shapiro speak, and I do want to personally invite you. We will pay for your travel, like I said to her, to come down to the Student Action Summit and to hear the biggest, most prominent conservative.
Okay, what you saw was actually him doing an oh crap moment, because they did something really good. Like, he was doing his head nod, head nod, head nod, head nod, head nod, which was the pretend listening, right? The head nod, head nod. He wasn't actually hearing anything. He was like, what's my next script? What's my next script? And then when she offered to pay, he did the look at the woman, look down at them, and he went, oh crap. Because he was like, I have no response to that. Like, that makes them look really good, and they did not give me a response to that. Like, that is not in the script. Like, there is nothing to that. Like, what do you do to kindness? Like, the Republicans are not supposed to be, like, kind and giving and offering me free trips and a free round trip and stuff. And he actually gives, like, an actual sneer. Like a sideways glance to both of them. Like, it's just, his disgust for women is just, it's almost unpalpable, unfortunately.
Speakers that come together in Florida at the Palm Beach event, right? You should definitely come down and just hear it. What they're saying is
Okay, so if you're watching, like, that's when he listens the least. Like, his eyes go down. Like, he had been looking at her. But when she offers the deal, that's when he just looks down. He just looks down and is like, checks out completely. Like, checks out completely. Completely. And what's interesting is that when she's offering, that's when you would think, most of us know, like, usually that's when we make more eye contact. Wow, you're offering a free trip. And he actually gives less eye contact. Like, immediately drops the eyes, looks away, and does sideways glances and, like, distrust. Like, distrust and, like, I don't, he gives away a lot of it with his, like, disgust. Like, the disgust comes out. Like, he's got it down, but he's like, oh, like, he just is like, don't come near me. Like, don't come near me. Don't touch me. Like, she drops something and gets near, and he's like, oh, right? It's just like, don't touch, right? And that's what division does, is that you can't bear to be touched by the other side. And that's what they want. That's why they're on the TV every day, like, angry, 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 angry. And they promise you the heavens, and then no one notices when they don't get it. And then, yeah. Anyway, we need to go to the next question. Oh, but what I was going to say is that if I were sitting in the other chair, when I see the drop down or whatever, I'd be like, so that is open to you if you want it. And I'd sit back and I'd let the audience see his take in of that. I'd let them see how the left takes an offer of generosity. And if it's just like hard, like, let them take this in. Let them see it. Because everyone's heard what they've offered. A free round trip paid ticket to Florida. Like, forget the speakers. It's a free trip to Florida. That's free money, man. Like, that's free travel. Did you know studies say the further you move, they literally did studies that the further you move from your place where you grew up, your IQ goes up. Like, your test scores go up the further you travel. That's why the DNC is putting all those taxes on travels. They tax the heck out of travel to the point where if you fly from New York to London, there's $1,000 tax on that. It's like $300. $300 to take a train trip away, $750 in taxes leveled by the DNC. Because they don't have to pay it. They don't have to pay it. Their lobbyists pay it. Who has to pay it? Normal, everyday, middle-class Americans. That's who has to pay it. If they ever want to travel. So they don't travel and their IQ goes down. So that's a big freaking deal. Like, going traveling is a privilege and an honor. No wonder Agenda 21 is like, oh, mega cities, and wants to ban living in 93% of our land. They want to ban it. Ban living. Read it. They adopted it. 1992. Sorry, it's law. It just is. And Clinton made it. I hate that. So anyway, but I would let everyone see how the left takes it. Let everyone take in the glory of, like, the deception. That he's not there to talk. That's what he's there to do. People need to see that. The left tries to cover it up. The left tries to say that they're tolerant. You need to let people see that the left is not tolerant. We just offered a big gift. If you keep going at it, like you could see is not going to be convinced. He was disgusted. Back off. Just be like, yeah, we're totally offering that. What do you think? Lay that up. Constantly give them an opportunity to speak. What do you think? What do you think of a free flight, round trip to Florida? To just simply hear people talk. What do you think of that? Is that something you ever thought you'd hear a Republican say? All right, she just made a ton of good questions or good points. She has amazing answers, of course, and but I'm going to go into the next question, but it starts with her kind of lead in, so you guys got to watch it. It is linked below if I didn't say that already, so gosh, here we go.
Decimated our communities, right?
Well, the thing about it is, especially when you look at it, when you look at who's the recipients of welfare, it's not necessarily like predominantly African Americans.
No,
it's actually been shown that it's predominantly affecting and predominantly used by people who are of Caucasian descent.
Well, that's because they're a bigger population. We only represent 13% of the population.
Well, of course, even if it is a bigger population, you still have to break it down to those basic numbers.
Look, I always talk, yeah, you're right. I always talk about the black community because I'm black, and that's what.
But I would say to that, but let's talk about like the percentages though. Like, let's talk about the percentages and let's talk about the fact that it was created for black communities and the fact that it's created a massive problem. Like in the white community, single motherhood has only gone up by 40%, where it's gone up by 70%. So the fact that they actually created it for the black community, it seems to be working on the black community even more. So let's talk about percentages. Maybe technically we can look at it and say, hey, technically more white people are using it, and technically less people are black using it. But you could say the same thing about gun statistics. Like, technically there are more crimes here, and technically, however, like, look at the violent crime. When you look at percentages are everything. Percentages absolutely reveal everything. When you actually look at the percentage of the population, like, that's what really matters. If you want to say that welfare is eating up your community, we need to look at our percent. You can say our numbers are not as big, but you can, just because they're the larger population, that's kind of like, trying to go around it. Like, that really is. And you kind of have to say that. You have to kind of catch them like that. You really have to catch them. You can't be like, that's right. That's right. You have to be like, well, but percentage-wise, be like, well, yeah, just because they're a bigger population, like, that doesn't mean it's affecting their community more. Like, it's a percentage-wise, it's affecting our community much greater. Like, their community's been affected by 40% unmarried, but our community's been affected by 70%. Like, unwed mothers. Like, and that unwed mother leads to poverty. Like, that. You can say, like, technically you can turn to that and say, well, they're a bigger race. That doesn't mean, just because they're a bigger race doesn't mean that it's not eating up our community. And that's another, like, one of those arguments that Open Society puts out. Like, if you look at their Open Society page, I'll try to link it down below. They have these, like, arguments back. Like, every time Ann Coulter writes an actual article, like, Open Society puts arguments back. Like, they actually write articles back so that people have things like this to actually make an argument back. But it doesn't mean that it's necessarily a logical one. Does that make sense? Like, it's just being like, well, ding, 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 I heard something. Here's the answer back. Well, yes. And here's what I like to do. Like, a lot of these things is when they're talking, and I'm noticing that the way that they're talking is there's a lot of talking and he's just nodding along, right? And he's not really listening. And I'm like, if you're going to take up my chair, right, I want the people out there to start actually thinking. Like, that's the biggest way to do it, is to start thinking. Ask them questions they haven't thought of before. If you're not doing that, you're just arguing your side. And it's trying to win. And that's what I see. I just see everyone out there trying to argue their side. And it's like being in debate class where we both get up and we try to win the debate. And at the end, everyone raises their hand and they do the flow chart and who won the debate. Like, that's it. you have to actually reach in, go past the debate, and you have to engage, because right now they have leftists and people who they have a script in their head. They have a script in their head, right? And they've got all the answers for everything you're going to say for this debate. They've been given an answer. You remember debate class? They were given flowcharts and they're like, if they make these points, here are all the points you're supposed to make, an argument to it. They've been given all the answers. You have to go past that and say, well, what do you think about this? Like, what do you think about that? Like, what do you think about the percentages? Like, have you thought about that before? Like, what do you think about that? And the fact of the matter is that very few people actually ask these guys what they think. They're usually just told what to think. Does that make sense? And once they kind of get underneath, like once you get past that and they start to engage, if they actually get past the script and you get into their head, then they start to actually consider, and then you get their analysis going. And if they actually start analyzing the facts that they've been giving, like throwing out that number that actually doesn't make sense, well, they have a larger population. They actually thought that that would win just because he was told this will win. And if you just say, well, do you really think that just because they are a larger population, that argument wins? Like, are you sure that they're a larger population, so it's affecting our community less than it's affecting theirs? Like, the number of recipients is not necessarily equal to, like, how it's affecting the community. Like, the impact. Like, let's look at the percentages. Like, what's the percentage of recipients in our community, and make all things equal? You know, let's make all things equal. Okay, well, if we take percentages, well, then we see which one's really being impacted more. Do you see how that makes, like, do you see how that, you know, we can't just say they're a bigger population, so nothing's affecting us. You know, they win. So it's a thought. It's a thought. Okay, and they're talking about welfare. So here is my answer on welfare. 2 things. Number 1, government assistance. I've given this stat before. 116 million Americans have full-time jobs. 114 are receiving full-time government assistance. That is not sustainable. If the Democrats win more seats in the fall, that number will be tilted. Look at your paycheck. You are paying more in Social Security benefits than you are in taxes. 20 years ago, you were paying like a tenth of that. That's because the same number of people like didn't believe that stat when I first gave it. And then you look at your taxes and you see what you're paying in Social Security benefits. And most of that is fraud. If you look at the debates from the presidential race way back in 1980, it was stated that back then Social Security fraud was at $7 billion. And that's with a Democrat in office. It's a racket that the DNC uses to get votes. Like, it's just a corrupt organization. It can't stand. The problem is that it can't last. Like, eventually they figure out that they don't need to get a job. Like, I just went through it with my nurse. I've been seeing all of these nurses on Judge Judy and all of these shows who said that they were a nurse, and now they're doing all these other full-time jobs, but they're receiving government benefits because they said they got hurt on the job. Well, it turns out the Democrats did this lovely little thing that said that if a nursing agency is covered, or any contractor in somebody's house is covered by insurance, that insurance agency doesn't have to just go after the company for the money. Like, the money, like my nursing agency goes ahead and pays their insurance premium. So my nurse had a slip and fall, though I don't believe it for a second because of her behavior before and her behavior afterwards. So they switched out my nurse and it's this whole thing, and I don't believe it at all. And yeah, there was this whole thing, and nervous the whole time. And I remember thinking, like, what? Like, what? And I just didn't like the feel of it. The whole house felt weird. It was awful. And then I found out why. Because and I remember thinking, like, because she was getting to this way that I felt like that just all this bitterness about coming to work and all this kind of stuff. And I was just like, what is going on? I was like, I got the feeling like they just didn't want to work anymore. And I was just like, and I was thinking about all of those shows, and then, oh, there it came. Because I was like, it's so easy to just say, ooh, I hurt my back today in today's world and just get a Social Security thing. You can just get that because they don't turn you down. It's impossible to be turned down by Social Security. Absolutely impossible. And so they go in there, boom, whatever. And so what happens with the lovely DNC rules? Well, now the insurance company goes, okay, you've been paying your premiums. They pay off the doctor, right? No, they don't pay off the doctor. They go after the person's house that person was at. They put a lien on my house. The insurance company put a lien on this house. And I was like, when that nursing agency came here and sold us on it, I'll never forget it, because the lady said to us up and down, like, and if anything happens, even if it's your fault, even if you have a big puddle of water and they slip and fall, we are covered. Like, you will never be touched. And I remember thinking in my head, like, why is she making such a big deal about it? Like, why is she making such a big deal? She said it like 3 times. And I was like, why is she making it? We even talked about it afterwards. I said to my husband, like, why is she making such a big deal about this? And I wish that we'd Googled it, though probably the DNC has them erase it or whatever. So after we got the lien on our home, we had to go ask our people in DC, like, what the hell? And the Democrats passed the thing. Like, they passed the thing for the insurance companies. And it's just a racket now, where all these contractors go out and they can just, and they just come and put a lien on your home. And you know how great it is, because they can just grab your home, because people can't afford a lawyer. They don't know what to do. They're so scared. And most of them are sick, especially in the nursing community. And I can't believe I ever told anybody to get a nurse, because I'm like, oh my God, like, you guys are all just pray out there. That's what the DNC does. So you want to know what I have to say about welfare? You know what I also learned in debate class? There was a huge sign, and maybe it's because I went to a white school, I don't know. But there was a huge sign in debate class that said, no such thing as a free lunch. There's no such thing as a free lunch. There's no such thing as a free lunch. You don't get to vote the way you want to. You don't get to vote for who's best for your community. You have to block vote in order to get your assistance and your check. You have to stay in a certain position. You don't get to move. You don't get to rise up. And you have no idea the potentials and the heights that you can reach, because it keeps you down. There's no such thing as a free lunch. Believe you me. Let me give you a fact. You want a fact? You want a fact? Because this guy, I'm going to end it here, because I've given you so much. It's almost at an hour. This guy goes off about the wealthy, as if the Republicans are the wealthy. And I'm like, you know who created the Fed? J.P. Morgan, with DNC Democrat Woodrow Wilson, on Jekyll Island, with the Rockefellers and Rothschild. That's just plain old fact. That's not conspiracy theory. That's historical fact. They admit it on their website for the Federal Reserve. They lie about some other things, that there are other banks. and how they worked out. In fact, they didn't. But yeah, they created a bank behind the people's backs. The people didn't want it. They did it outside of democracy. They created themselves outside of the U.S. Congress. J.P. Morgan Bank owns food stamps. You are owned by the banking system, the richest in the world. Remember how I gave you a chart of the global corporate network? And they gave those little balls in the six, the 173 richest people in the world, the corporations that control everything. That's who you're tied to when you do welfare. You know what they do? They keep the poor poor. Before welfare, do you know where your wealth was compared to white Americans? Do you have any idea? Your wealth has gone like this since welfare from white America. There's no such thing as a free lunch. There's no such thing as a free lunch. And if you think that the Democratic Party, who filibustered your civil rights, who sprayed you down with hoses, at the same time created this system for you, you think that that was out of love and goodness and not out of keeping you down. My God, there's no such thing as a free lunch. Every time you're like, ooh, that's $500. Ooh, yay. You know why they're doing that? They don't want you out there taking the 12 grand. They don't want you out there taking the 12 grand. They did it right when you guys were like shooting up in music, becoming bigger than Elvis Presley. Don't you guys remember? Don't you remember how big you were in music? And that's when they did welfare. And suddenly, magically, the 70s happened and everything became white in music. Gee, isn't that interesting? And all the black people became background singers. Gee, who funded that? Let me think. Oh, right, the same people that fund the DNC today. I think that's enough for now. No such thing as a free lunch. This isn't what I would do if I'm sitting next to a person. I think I already went over what I would say. I wore myself out. I will sit down. I'll have a nice, whatever in front of my husband. And I am very grateful to all of you brave enough to listen to me. I wish I could meet every one of you. You are America, the land of the brave and the free. And I don't think of you as a conservative or a liberal or an independent. I just think of you as free. And I will never, ever, ever try to categorize you except as anything but you. Peace out.